Hello everyone and welcome to the weird, scary and horrible parts of humanity. Today we are looking at the worst mass shooting in the history of the beautiful state of Hawaii, the 1999 Honolulu shootings, also known as the Xerox murders, committed by Byran Koji Uyesugi on the 2nd of November 1999, which left 7 people dead. Uyesugi, pictured second row centre while in high school, was born in 1959 in Nuuanu in Honolulu, Hawaii, and was one of 2 children with a brother named Dennis. He attended President Theodore Roosevelt High School, a public coeducational college preparatory high school in Honolulu, which was ranked in 2019 as the top high school by the US News and World Report in Hawaii. While at school, a quiet Uyesugi never got into any trouble. He also joined the Junior Reserves Officers Training Corps chapter of his school and the school's rifle team. Upon leaving high school, he took odd jobs, including working at a restaurant at Honolulu's Daniel K. Inouye International Airport. In 1977, shortly after graduating from high school, he crashed his father, Hiroyuki Uyesugi's car, hitting his head on the windshield. While there were no records of a head injury as a result of the accident, Uyesugi's brother, Dennis, noted that he was never the same again. Uyesugi began raising and breeding goldfish and koi as a hobby, which he sold to local pet stores. At the Zenith, he had 1,000 different types of goldfish and koi and would clean all of his fish tanks before going to work. He also loved woodwork and rebuilding engines. He also had an extensive collection of firearms, with 25 guns registered in his name at the time of the shooting, having collected guns since 1982. This was a passion that he shared with his father, who had 11 handguns, 5 rifles and 2 shotguns. Hawaii does have some of the most restrictive gun laws in the United States of America, as people must have a permit to purchase a gun, and to acquire a permit one must be 21 years or older. In an unknown year, Uyesugi got married, and in 1996 he had a daughter. In 1984, Uyesugi began working at Xerox as a service technician for photocopiers, whereby he would repair photocopiers, with his offices based at 1200N Nimitz Highway in Honolulu. Based in Norwalk, Connecticut in the United States of America, Xerox Holdings Corporation sells printers and digital document products and services in more than 160 countries and is consistently listed as a Fortune 500 company. By 1988, Uyesugi began complaining that he had a poking sensation in his head, which was caused by an invisible demon, with his father noting that he experienced the pain from when he came home from work until he goes to sleep. His father insisted on Uyesugi seeing a psychiatrist, which led Uyesugi to rebuke his father's suggestion, stating, "I'm not crazy, leave me alone." He also had visions of a dark shadow around him. He was transferred to another work group at Xerox and began making unfounded accusations of harassment by fellow repairmen, complaining that he had difficulty dealing with them, with his co-workers allegedly calling him a junk worker because they were jealous of his performance, sabotaging his parts and machines, trying to discredit him and trying to get him fired. He mentioned to his family that co-workers Ron Kawamare and Jason Balatico influenced others' behaviours around him, leading them to harass him as well. Uyesugi's former co-workers noted that his colleagues ostracised him, leading him to feel isolated and withdrawn, which manifested into Uyesugi making threats of killing co-workers. In 1993, he kicked in and damaged an elevator door at work, leading him to be arrested for third-degree criminal property damage. As a result, Uyesugi met with Western Regional Security Manager of Xerox, James Hughes, and he was ordered to undergo psychiatric evaluation and anger management courses. As early as 1995, Uyesugi openly talked about carrying out a mass shooting at his Xerox workplace if he was fired. Amazingly, he was never investigated nor reprimanded for this. However, Uyesugi maintained a victim mentality, complaining that his co-workers at Xerox harassed him, backstabbed him, and spread untrue rumours about him. Equally, he also believed that someone was harming his fish, telling his brother that someone had broken the backs of one of his fish. He insisted that his fish were being killed by Xerox colleague Jason Balatico. In 1997, with his poking sensations continuing and visions of a dark shadow, the family enlisted the assistance of Reverend Clarence Higa, who advised them to dig 4 pukas in each corner of their Nuanu home, which is pictured, burying rice, poi, mullet and beer within the pukas, with Reverend Higa telling them that he would create a protective barrier in the property's yard to keep the spirits out. This lasted a few days before the poking sensations returned. Gradually, Xerox withdrew the photocopy that Uyesugi was working on, and he became concerned that he wouldn't keep up with the technical demands of the new photocopying machine, and he resisted all attempts to learn about the replacement machine, leading him to have a very low workload. However, this gradually came to pass as the years went by, with his manager Melvin Lee on the 1st of November 1999 insisting that Uyesugi begin to learn how to use the new photocopier, with his training to commence the next day on the 2nd of November 1999. When interviewed by chairman of the forensic panel, Dr. Michael Weiner, during his trial, Uyesugi stated that if he refused to undertake the training on the 2nd of November 1999, he would be fired by Xerox, with Uyesugi stating that instead he would give them a reason to fire him. At 8 a.m. on the 2nd of November 1999, Uyesugi entered his Xerox offices carrying a Glock 17 handgun and 2 extra magazines, which are pictured. At the time, there were 11 people present within the offices. Briefly chatting with an employee on the first floor, he went to the office's second floor, shooting Ronald Kamawame, who was aged 54 and lived alone in Maikiki, having worked with Xerox for 30 years. Kamawame loved his job and liked golf. He had one son, Reed, aged 34 at the time of the shooting, and a 4-year-old grandson named Reinton. Uyesugi also shot Christopher Balatiko, who went by Jason, aged 33, who was from Honolulu and attended Farrington High School. He spared Randall Shin. Uyesugi then entered a conference room where a meeting was taking place. Waving goodbye to those in the conference room, he murdered Ford Kanariga, aged 41, who was from Kaneohe, and had a wife named Lorna and a 5-year-old son at the time of the shooting named Bryce. A cheerful, childlike, innocent and happy-go-lucky individual, he worked with a team on newer equipment. Uyesugi also killed Ronald Kataoka, aged 50, who was from Milani, who had worked at Xerox for nearly 10 years. Kataoka had an 11-year-old daughter. Melvin Lee, aged 58, was also shot, with Lee from Waipau, who was married and had worked with Xerox for close to 30 years as a field manager in customer service. Lee managed Uyesugi. Uyesugi also shot John Sakamoto, aged 36, who was from Honolulu, with a wife, a daughter aged 4 and a son aged 2. The final victim was Peter Mark, aged 46. Uyesugi then went down the stairway and attempted to kill Stebe Masuda, aged 55, who survived. Fleeing the offices in a company van with the Xerox building evacuated and crisis counsellors comforting company employees at the neighbouring Eakle Cafe, Uyesugi went on the run until he was found mid-morning sitting in the van near the Hawaii Nature Center in Maikiki, above downtown Honolulu, following a jogger calling police at 9:45 a.m, having seen the car. At the time, the Hawaii Nature Center was hosting 35 local schoolchildren, with schoolchildren kept inside due to Uyesugi brandishing his pistol in the car outside the Hawaii Nature Center. A standoff occurred between Uyesugi and police, with Uyesugi brandishing his Glock 17, reading magazines and smoking cigarettes before surrendering to police at 3 p.m. when he was immediately arrested. His father was in shock, with Hiro Uyesugi stating that on the morning of the shooting nothing seemed to be wrong with his son, and he said that Uyesugi must have been fired, leading him to commit the shooting. This was denied by Xerox on the 4th of November 1999, who noted that they had no intention of firing Uyesugi, merely reprimanding him in the event that he did not undertake the training for the new photocopiers. Mayor of Honolulu, Jeremy Harris, gave a statement from the Xerox building stating, "This is a tragedy. We live in the United States. A mass murder like this is a shock to everybody." Xerox CEO at the time, Rick Foreman, expressed his deep concern for the victims and their families. The shooting made national headlines across the United States of America as well as international headlines. Unable to pay the $7 million bail, his trial began on the 15th of May 2000, with Uyesugi represented by Gerald Fonesca and Rodney Ching of the law firm Fonesca & Ching. Under Hawaiian law, first-degree murder charges where multiple killings took place carry a mandatory sentence of life imprisonment without parole. Uyesugi pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, claiming that he felt like an outcast from work and that he feared that his colleagues were conspiring to have him fired from Xerox. He also believed that others were tampering with his phosh. Dr. Park Dietz, a forensic psychiatrist who has consulted or testified for numerous high-profile US criminal cases, as well as Dr. Darryl Matthews, a professor of forensic psychiatry at the University of Hawaii, both testified on the part of the defense, with both noting that Uyesugi was insane. While the prosecution's expert witness, Dr. Harold Hall, testified that Uyesugi fulfilled the criteria for diagnosis of schizophrenia, he did not meet the criteria for insanity, extreme emotion, or mental disturbance. Moreover, Dr. Michael Wellner, on behalf of the prosecution, testified that Uyesugi most likely had schizophrenia and carried out the shooting because he was angry that he would be fired for insubordination and refusing to learn how to operate the new photocopiers. On the 13th of June 2000, the jury rejected the insanity defense, and Uyesugi was found guilty of 7 murders and 1 count of attempted murder, which did not surprise his defense lawyers. On the 8th of August 2000, Judge Maria N. Milks sentenced Uyesugi to life without the possibility of parole. He was ordered to pay $500 on restitution and $70,000 to the Crime Victim Compensation Fund. This is the maximum sentence within Hawaii, as Hawaii does not have the death penalty. Hawaii ended capital punishment in 1957, with the last civilian execution having taken place in 1944, when Adriano Domingo was hanged for the murder of 21-year-old Secretary Helen R. Sakamoto in Kauai, while 3 military executions took place between 1944 and 1947 in Hawaii. The last execution in Hawaii was that of 19-year-old Private Garland Mickles on the 22nd of April 1947, who had committed a rape in Guam. Appealing his convictions in 2002 at the State of Hawaii Supreme Court, Uyesugi's conviction was upheld. In 2005, the parole board ordered Uyesugi to serve a minimum term of 235 years in prison, which remains the longest sentence ever ordered on a prisoner in Hawaii. In the same year, Xerox and family members of the victims settled for an undisclosed amount. Uyesugi remains incarcerated, but today is on the mainland at the Saguaro Correctional Center in Eloy, Arizona. The site where the shooting took place was vacated by Xerox shortly after the shooting. It remained vacant for 5 years until 2004, when producers of the ABC television show Lost, which aired from the 22nd of September 2004 until the 23rd of May 2010 and was filmed in Hawaii, built a soundstage in the building on 1200 N Nimitz Highway to film indoor scenes for Lost. Today the building is utilised by Dal-Tile for its tile and natural stone showroom. The building is owned by the Weinberg Foundation. Thank you for watching. Please do yourself a favour and hit that subscribe button and the bell icon to inform yourself when new videos come out. Also, why not hit that like button and leave a nice comment? It helps more than you know, and your support is truly appreciated. Until next time, stay awesome, stay classy, be kind to everyone you meet, have an amazing day, and remember that truth is always more interesting than fiction.